Hello and welcome to Stories of Joshua and Grace, where we explore narratives of transformation, faith, and spiritual growth in a relaxed and thoughtful setting. You see what I did there, Grace? I put a little twist to the introduction.
Yep,
Anyways,
I see you.
and in today's episode, we will discuss Matthew, the scribe of grace. Not Grace, my sister, but like Grace as per, by grace are you saved.
That's why I was like, every time I hear my name, my heart
Yeah,
goes. "Mm."
before I just go further, I received the sort of comment feedback by one of our listeners, and they said we play too much. Well, I said that the point of it is to
Seriously.
discuss this important thing in a relaxed setting. I don't want to sound
Uh
too
huh.
preachy, like I'm giving the word of yeah, no,
Exactly.
because the story is still the story. This is something you listen when you're driving and you're relaxed. So, just a little bit of introduction on Matthew. Who was Matthew? Matthew, also known as Levi, was a tax collector. Basically, because he was a Jewish person that was working for the Roman government, because of his job, he was ostracized by the community. His fellow Israelites at that time didn't like him because he was seen as a traitor, working for the Roman Empire. And also, most tax collectors used to take a little bit of extra for themselves. So they were profiting at the expense of their fellow Jews. Typically, when the Israelites see this type of people, they don't really want to do anything with them because they don't like them. But Jesus saw beyond that. With Jesus, he was a person that could be saved. So when Jesus encountered him, he told him, "Follow me." And one thing I like about this story is that if you've noticed a pattern, most people that Jesus meets, like whether Peter also, they were walking. So either they were on their boats fishing. In this case, Matthew was at work and Jesus just came to him and said, Matthew, follow me. And he left everything and left. That's what, when you are your own boss, you can leave at any time. You don't have anybody to, yeah.
Uh huh.
I've
Yeah.
just been thinking, didn't the Romans or didn't the employers say, what's wrong with you? Or maybe there was a way of easily quitting your job back in the day that I don't know. That is something I will need to
Yeah. Unlike now, that you
one
have to
month
give
notice.
like a
Oh, yeah,
few
exactly.
weeks.
Yeah, so it's something I need to
Mhm.
do a little bit of research into to know. Okay, could you just get up and leave without any problem? Anyway,
But I think in those days, like 10 years ago, all these simple jobs, you could easily just tell the boss that, you know what, I don't want to come to work anymore. I don't want to work
yeah, but
here. Maybe if
he
you're a
was a tax collector
saleswoman.
working for the government. So yeah, exactly.
Oh,
But
yeah. No, I'm actually talking about the other people, like the fishermen and
okay, so this
the other disciples.
in this story, in this discussion, we'll talk about his transformation from the tax collector to an apostle and the gospel writer. It just talks how grace of God can change your purpose and can help you fulfill your destiny.
Do you know what? Now you explained the situation with Matthew, how his people didn't want to associate with him.
Yeah.
It's as if he was kind of a loner. That's the way I can imagine it. Imagine your own
Well,
people don't want to associate with you.
I mean, yeah, we won't really say he was a loner. They more of less had their own community because you could see even Zacchaeus, uncle, they had their own community.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they were not liked by the majority of the Jews, but they had their fellow tax collector friends and a couple of people that benefited from them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I mean, even in Zacchaeus' case, for example, he was able to throw Jesus a feast. So I mean, he had people he could invite on short notice. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all right. So
Really, on a short
sorry.
notice.
Wow,
You just said at a short notice.
that was a little joke.
I know. I picked it.
The guy said little joke. Okay, all right. So now we'll just talk a little bit about Matthew's book. That's the Gospel of Matthew. So if we read this book, it's basically targeting the Jewish audience, and
Mm-hmm.
basically this just shows the way he approaches who Jesus is. For example, he starts with this genealogy, talks about Abraham and co and co to David and co and co to Jesus. So this is basically the Jewish history, and the Jewish audience can appreciate this. If you read through the book of Matthew, he keeps referencing the Old Testament and he uses phrases like this was to fulfill the prophecy that was spoken by this person because the Jewish people knew of those prophecies earlier. Again,
Yeah.
it shows that this Son of God is not something new. No, this is the person that we have been expecting, and he's just coming to fulfill so and so and so prophecy. Okay. Before I go further, is there anything you would like to say, Grace?
Have you seen this movie? Or yeah, I think it's a series, The Chosen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but So many people have recommended it to me, and I think it's something that I should see because they say it's so good.
Yeah, yeah. At first I was like, okay, let me see. And when I started seeing it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. But the reason I'm talking about it is that they portrayed Matthew as someone who had like a neurological issue, as if he was autistic or something. And this is my opinion. I have no idea. I don't know who Matthew was. I don't know anything about him. But could it be that because his book was kind of really organized from the Old Testament to the present day, as in Jesus? Could it be because of that? And okay, I know you haven't seen it, but do you think, let me just ask you as a doctor, do you think that Matthew's account could have an like a
Of his
reflection?
personality?
Yeah.
That's a really good question because the truth is, certain, okay, and I just digress a bit. So, certain occupations, right?
Uh-huh.
You tend to excel in them if you have a personality type for that. For instance, someone who is really caring, like that's who they are. They will do well
Mm-hmm.
as a doctor or as a nurse because all they have to do is just learn the science. And by the time you mix the knowledge with your personality of being caring, you are going to be excellent at your job. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there is no documentation that Matthew was autistic. I've never come across that in both in my personal studies and in research for this episode. I've never come across that. But the thing about Matthew is that his occupation as a tax collector required him to be detailed in keeping accounts. People say it as he just more or less used his skills that he learned from work into serving God. So keeping account of, for instance, when he writes about Jesus feeding this amount of people, he gives account of how many people were there, how many baskets were left over. That could just have been seen by his occupation, his training, rather than his personality of being autistic.
Honestly, you need to see it. You need to see the series. You'd definitely understand
All
what I
right, sure.
mean.
It's actually on my list of series.
Okay. Have you seen House of David
No, not yet, Grace. I
on
barely have time to
Prime?
watch series nowadays. I just added to my list.
I just
You're the one that was
asked.
telling me to watch Cobra Kai yesterday. I
Okay.
said I don't. Within my busy schedule, I just maybe watch movies here and there, but series need more commitment.
Yeah. All right. Back to Matthew.
All right. So if you read through the book of Matthew, there are a couple of things that he emphasized. One was he talked about the kingdom of heaven. And we will say to ourselves, why is this unique? Why is this kingdom of heaven different from the kingdom we all know here on earth? And why is it just separate from an imaginary kingdom that, is in Revelations that just talks about, the streets made of gold and everything? In Matthew's book, he would emphasize about how unique this kingdom of heaven is to this kingdom that we are used to. For instance, in the kingdom of heaven, the greatness is found in servanthood. So this is what Jesus would say, that if you want to be the greatest, you have to serve. And he talks about how Jesus defines this kingdom and how Jesus describes authority. And the other thing that he will talk about is the call to discipleship. For instance, in the Sermon on the Mount, he talks about Jesus teaching on forgiveness, humility, and sacrifice. Jesus is not only calling people to believe in him, but he calls them to follow him and live according to the values of this his kingdom. Okay, and then eventually the book of Matthew accumulates in the Great Commission when Jesus tells his followers to go into the world and make disciples. Discipleship is an active process, involves learning as well as teaching, because Matthew talks about how Jesus called his disciples. Later, it talks how he equipped them, he taught them, and then later how he sent them out to go and do the same things. Like, in other words, go and make new disciples. Yeah, so it's a growing process. You start from somewhere, and then you grow into becoming something else. Okay? Unlike some of Jesus' other disciples, not much is known about Matthew's background before Jesus called him. We do know that he was a tax collector and he was stationed in the town of Capernaum. Okay? And we also know that because he was, I'll say, gainfully employed by the Romans, he was socially and religiously marginalized, and he was considered a sinner by his
Yeah.
community. When you read the book of Matthew, one of the things that you will notice is there is a lot of references to the Old Testament. So rather than Matthew addressing Jesus as, a new wave or a new entity, he addresses Jesus as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies.
But honestly, I wonder what would have made him to want to be a tax collector of all things. I don't know if you
Occupation now.
understand.
What would make anyone do anything? So, I mean, in
No, I
Matthew, in
mean
Matthew's case,
to be something that people would want to look at you in the bad light. Do you understand what I
again,
mean?
he made his profit from it. Of course, I did not sit down with Matthew when he was doing career choice or whatever.
Neither
Exactly,
did
but
I.
the old saying is, people don't ask you about how you are poor. They only ask you how do you make your wealth. So
Oh, go away. You don't
no, I
understand
get
what
you.
I
Like, why would
mean.
he
I
choose an
mean,
occupation that he will be
yeah,
marginalized
and
and everything?
knowing fully well that people
But
exactly.
when he's crying with his Caesar coins, I don't think he's thinking so much about that.
I think so.
Caesar coins could be good. So the next thing we'll just discuss is, what did Matthew emphasize about Jesus, or what does the book of Matthew emphasize about Jesus? One is, he presents Jesus as this promised Messiah. He presents him as a teacher that is even greater than Moses, and as this king
Yeah,
that is ushering us into a new spiritual kingdom. Okay.
yeah.
All right. All right. All right. Now, are you smiling? Are you laughing? Yeah, we joke too much. I'll just
I
give a
know
shout
that is
out to the person
like
that gave
honestly,
me.
as you're talking, I'm still
Yeah,
remembering.
it's one of my
I'm still
it's one
remembering
of
what you
yeah.
said about the
I'll
person.
call him out and give him a shout out. It's one of my guys. His name is Nathan. Nathan, God bless you.
Oh,
Yeah, he said, Joshua, I
Nathan.
listen to your podcast and you joke too much. I want it to be serious. I'm like, fam, you go to church that are serious, and everywhere they are serious. I mean, it's not a relax more. What is this problem? All right, that's my ranting time done for the week. So
Can you imagine?
what?
How would you say your ranting time for the week? That was just how
I'm a,
many seconds? I ran for
I'm a
like
big
two
man now.
days.
We only have like few seconds of rants per week.
Right. You're not serious.
All right.
Okay.
So yeah, one of the reflections and the life applications from the story of Matthew is, one, we are not defined by our past. And how is this relevant in this case? Well, for a lack of a better word, Matthew was seen as a traitor by his own people because he was working for the enemies. But Jesus called him to something greater. So that just shows that our past does not disqualify us from being used by God. And actually, our past is one of the best testimonies that we can have to show that the salvation power of God is real.
What are you drinking, by the way?
I'm drinking water.
Seriously, that's
Yeah, yeah.
water. You're drinking it like a big man.
I'm drinking my water, beg. My throat, my throat is dry. All right. The next thing I'm just gonna say is, I'll be serious for the next 10 seconds, and I'll talk about.
Well, that's you. I don't think I can be
I
serious.
will be serious for the next 10 seconds. I'm just gonna talk about one of the things that I learned from this life of Matthew. Okay. So one of the things I learned from Matthew is, discipleship requires sacrifice. Matthew left behind his livelihood, he left behind his social position to follow Jesus. This just shows the true discipleship often means letting go of what you're comfortable in order to embrace that. I can't even be serious.
Okay, you tried. Honestly, you tried.
All
You
right.
really tried.
Anyway, true discipleship requires letting go of what you're comfortable in so that you can embrace what is internal. Another thing that you learn from the book of Matthew is that Matthew really bridges the Old Testament with the New Testament. It just shows that this Old Testament are not just disconnected writings, no, but the whole Bible is a continuous story of redemption, and Jesus is the fulfillment of what came before. And the last thing I'd just like to speak about Matthew before we go on a break. Matthew not only followed Jesus, but he faithfully recorded his teachings so that other followers can have access to this information. So he moved beyond being a passive believer into an active follower. That is great. Okay, now let's go to our favorite section, Q&A. Q&A, is sort of a revision and highlight of everything that we've discussed today. So we just go through some of the points we raised earlier.
This is a Q&A section, and we are going to talk about the first facts on Matthew. Joshua, are you ready? Why are you giving me a straight face? Are you ready?
Let's go quickly here.
Right, okay. So, what was Matthew's job before Jesus called him?
So basically, he was a tax collector, like I said earlier, and he was likely stationed in Capernaum.
What does his profession tell us?
Basically, from his profession as a tax collector working for the Roman government, we know that
Yeah.
he was morally compromised,
Mm-hmm.
socially rejected, and
Mm-hmm.
religiously ostracized.
So the only thing we actually know about Matthew is just his profession before Jesus called him,
I
and
mean, we could
yeah.
we
So
could do a lot of more research into like his family, sort of parents, children, stuff. But to be honest,
but I feel like for him to be able to be a tax collector, I'm sure he had like the opportunity to, study to be a tax collector. Maybe he was from a wealthy background. Do you understand?
yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'm not really a fan of doing a maybe. If he was from a wealthy background, they would do research. I would know if was he from a wealthy background or was he not. Yeah, I'm not really a fan
I
of this
know, but
hypothesis.
like the
Yeah.
reason I'm saying this is if I don't say it, then we won't do
No, no,
any
no.
research
So
on his
just
background
you can just
in
go do
terms
research, yeah,
of
and find out.
right. Okay. Stop laughing at me.
All right, all right.
Okay. The third one. What's one unique feature of his gospel?
Okay. He keeps referencing the Old Testament, and he talks about so many prophecies that were fulfilled. So one of the things that's unique about him is he bridges the Old Testament with the New Testament.
All right. And the last question is, what was Matthew's key message?
Matthew's, I mean, he did write a lot of things, but something that is a take home from his book is that one, Jesus is the promised Messiah, and the kingdom of heaven is here.
Right. And that is really important. He wrote it so many years ago, and up till today, it is still important for us to know that the kingdom of God is at hand.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll just take the final reflection. So just
Yeah.
yeah, this episode we just addressed how Matthew was transformed when he encountered Jesus from the tax collector to a gospel writer. This is just a profound reminder that no matter what we've been through, once we keep our hearts open to Jesus, grace can transform us. So his life challenges us to see people through the eyes of Jesus and to trust God's redemptive purposes. So this is not just us, but also other people. We should have, we should not just be stuck in our old mindset. We should be able to see people the way Jesus sees them. Okay. And the last thing is that when we hear a calling, and now this calling does not mean to go open a church or go start a church, become a pastor. No, Jesus could just call it to a little act of love. Maybe go check up on that
Yeah.
person or help this person out. Could be financially or could be something, you know.
Or just like Saul in the Bible when he was on the streets named Street.
Exactly.
When he called when he called Ananias to go help him.
Yeah, because sometimes we're saying maybe if I was there the old day and Jesus called me to Joshua, come and be a disciple or come and be my apostle, I would have left and followed. But then he's calling to do something simple like, oh, just check up on this person. I'm like, nah, I'm too busy. I mean,
Yeah.
so and also the last thing is don't hold on to old habits too tightly or too closely. You know, in Matthew's case, I mean, he's not an old habit. This was his occupation, but like for the rest of us, if there's any behavior or anything that holding on that you're holding on to, and you feel like this is holding you back, you know, just be willing to take the grace from God and
Why are you so
let it
serious?
go.
Nathan, what have you done?
I need to text that myself for me to play football. All right. Anything else from you, Grace?
It's just I can't imagine what the benefits, the way he stole everything that he benefited by being a tax collector, leaving everything behind to follow Jesus. It must have been a big deal for him. But the kingdom of God, following Jesus is more important than anything we think is important on earth. So that's what I feel we should always remember.
Thank you all for joining us for today's episode of Stories of Joshua and Grace. We hope that Matthew's story has inspired you to reflect on your own walk with God and to embrace the transforming power of grace. Until next time, may you walk in grace, live in truth, and grow in
Stop,
faith.
stop calling my name now. How many times?
have, a,
Now you're calling
have
Faith's
a
name.
wonderful day.
Anyway, bye. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.